mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about my new book, and I'm really excited to be here and to share some of these ideas from you and maybe hear some of your ideas afterwards. I was in an airport one day, and this is one of those kiosks that's not on the edge of the building, it's actually in the middle of the building. And so these backs of these large cigarette boxes that you're not normally supposed to see, you could see. And so I'm walking by and I see all of these warnings. And as you probably know, the U.S. Surgeon General decided to put these warnings on cigarettes. And the U.S. was the first country to do this in 1966, but then almost every country has followed. So I started to think, what if we had signs reminding us that our environment was a danger to our health? Signs that look something like this. Poor air quality seriously harms you and others around you. Poor air quality causes fatal lung cancer. Poor air quality kills. Protect children, don't make them breathe the air. You know, people seem to care a lot about what they put in their bodies, taking to heart the saying that we are what we eat. But they seem less concerned sometimes about where they put their bodies, the places that we live. But we are where we live just as much as we are what we eat, because we drink the water, we breathe the air, and we inhabit the built and natural environments. We don't respond well to that. We don't respond that well to negative reinforcement. We respond much better to positive reinforcement. And that's what I'm going to speak with you about today. What we have now is a consensus about how to make better places. You can argue with me, but on the first page of the book, I summarize that in one paragraph, and I'll read it to you if you want. But I believe that we have reached a consensus. We didn't have a consensus 10, 15 years ago, but we do now. We know how to make good places. And then a lot of people say, well, maybe we have the knowledge and we have the skills and the talents, but we don't have the money and we don't have the resources in general. I would argue with that. And the reason I would argue with that, and I think you'll all agree, is that a lot of stuff gets built that's not so good. The resources are there, but they're not matched up with the good ideas necessarily. And so what I want to talk to you about is this fact that we have everything we need, and yet we still don't have good urbanism. So I've come up with this thing called a path toward prosperity. As you can see, there's 6 steps. The first one is prospect. It's like you're prospecting for gold. You're seeing the good that's already there. Then you take that nugget of gold and you polish it. Then you might be inspired, in this case, by a star. The blue would be a real star in the sky. And you take that gold and you craft it into your version of a star. That's proposing. Then you want to prototype that star that you made, so you put it on a necklace to see how it would look there. Then you want to promote it, show people. You have a necklace that you made, so you show it on a woman. You maybe advertise it. Finally, the last stage, we don't all stick with every project our whole lives. We hand it over. We present it. So we start with a gift. We start with the gifts that are existing, and we end with a gift. The path toward prosperity is an economy of gifts. This approach says, don't do that. When you have your problem, instead of focusing on the problem right away, say, well, we'll get back to the problem. But before we get back to the problem, let's pause, another P, take a step back, and excavate, prospect for all the assets and the gifts that are here. Now, this might sound like a simple thing, but I can assure you it changes everything. So this approach says, instead of a tabula rasa, let's begin with a tabula plena, a full slate. The prospect stage actually has 3 parts to it. The first one is personal prospecting. What do I think should happen here? Then we move simultaneously to the other 2, collective and place prospecting. and we work with others and find out what they think, and we prospect in the place. What are great buildings that are here? What are great neighborhoods? What do people have to offer? All of the great things that already exist in a place. So we're moving from prospect to polish. And then with that stuff that's out there, that great stuff, those assets, you protect them. You protect what you value. You protect what you love. Then you enhance what might be underperforming, and then you add what you don't have but would like. When we work with the people, when we do our collective prospecting, the first thing we do is we invite people to join us. So here we are, still prospecting, but now we're moving forward. Polish and propose. So I'm going to illustrate this with the example I worked on in Phoenix called Canalscape. My intuition was that if we want to revitalize Phoenix, we need to celebrate that water system, those canals. Instead of turning our backs to it, we needed to make it the front porch of the city, not the back alleys. We need to celebrate the water. So I compared Phoenix to other canal cities that people think of as canal cities and saw that we have more canal miles in Phoenix than Amsterdam and Venice combined. So I'm still personal prospecting here. This is still just me. And I decided to brand it Canalscape. And I gave it a tagline which defines it real quickly so people could understand. It's a desert urbanism for Metro Phoenix comprised of vital urban hubs where canals meet major streets. Next step. I could not do this by myself, not at all. So I started my collective prospecting. I ran a workshop, and I had 21 students here from 11 different disciplines, and then we partnered with an urban design workshop from University of Colorado, Denver. Okay, then we had a lot of ideas. I'm just showing you a little tip of the iceberg here. We had a lot of ideas. Then we had to promote them. We had to get the idea across to others. And one thing is, I noticed when I was in the airport in Phoenix, you know how airports give away these free maps. This was the free map in Phoenix, and I'm looking at it like, what's wrong with this picture? There were no canals on the map. And I thought, what if I had arrived in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam and got a map and saw no canals in Amsterdam? That would be awfully strange. So I thought, well, we really need to represent Phoenix, represented in a different way by showing the canals. So the really thick ones are the rivers, the thinner ones are the canals, and then each of these is opportunities for canalscape, places where canals meet major streets. There's 150 of them, and this is a form of urban acupuncture. The canals are like energy meridians in our bodies, and each canalscape is like a needle inserting into a blockage and liberating the life force of the city. So we created those maps. That was one way to promote it. Another was that we created this publication, and you can all see it. It's online, a PDF at canalscape.org, and this is what Ariel helped us with. She did the timeline in there. She's a graphic designer also. And so all the students' work is in here. We had 700 printed, but most of them disappeared. They all disappeared within the first week that we produced them. Because we had, in addition, also promoting it, we had 4 exhibits. This was the first one. It was at the ASU Art Museum, and we actually recreated a canalscape in the nymphaeum of this building designed by Antoine Predock. Here was our canalscape. Here's the canalscape team right there. These are our sponsors, and then you can walk through and see a canalscape. This was the opening night. We were very surprised. It had hit the blogosphere by this time, and 650 people showed up for the opening night, and that's why all the books disappeared. After that, we were invited, the mayor and the city council had come to visit the other exhibit at the ASU Art Museum, and they said, could you please bring it to City Hall? And it wasn't as exciting a venue, really, but it was an entirely different demographic because it was the lobby of City Hall. So everyone who worked there and everyone came for permits or whatever, not necessarily people who go to an art museum, would see it. And so a lot of people were seeing this. Then we moved it in between this one and that one. We moved it. Scottsdale City Hall asked for it after Phoenix had it. And this was our last one, and it's still here. And it's at the Gateway Community College, and it was selected by the governor's office as a Centennial Legacy Project. Prototype. This is kind of where we are now with it. Here's that Gateway Community College. So the exhibit is in here right now. And look at this college. It's surrounded by parking lots, but it's right on the canal. And here's a light rail stop. And here's another light rail stop. And right here is the airport. I mean, incredible location, right? If you have a layover, there's no place to go now. But if they built Canalscape here, it could be fabulous. There could be hotels, there could be restaurants, there could be cinemas, there could be parks, places to walk. But right now, I'm going to show you what it looks like if you're standing right here. That's what it looks like right now. So the president of this college, he attended the exhibit that was at Phoenix City Hall. And he just stood in one place most of the evening. And afterwards, I went up to him, and this is where he was standing. It was our proposal for that site. And I walked up to him, and he said, "We're going to do that." And so he's working to make this happen. He could have residence halls for his students. It could be mixed. All different kinds of people could live there. Lots of activity, public art, everything. So, of course, we don't stick with our projects our whole lives. We hand them over at some point. And as I was leaving Phoenix, before I told anyone I was leaving, but I knew I was leaving, and I got a call from Valley Forward, and they said, "Can you come in and talk to us about Canalscape?" And I didn't know why, but after I left, their board decided to adopt it. And they do projects. They do big projects. So they're a civic business group, and they have adopted Canalscape. SRP is involved, and the city of Phoenix is also involved. And they're using that one I just showed you as one of their prototypes, and they have one other intersection they're working on as well. So hopefully we'll see it. I was really pleased. My Google alert sent this to me 2 days ago. That Phoenix has this interactive plan thing now called My Plan Phoenix. It's kind of like Open City Hall here in Salt Lake, or your Salt Lake. And somebody submitted Nan Ellin's Canalscape and Canal Villages. I believe in Canalscape, and I know many of Ellen's former students and colleagues do as well. So that was very sweet. Then I came here, and I started the Salt Lake City workshop. This is our mission statement. It's about people co-creating place with a purpose, prosperity for all. It's very idealistic. And it's about prosperity. And this was my first group. There's Joseph right here. We found there was an abandoned rail line along 900 South. It veered south right here down into the area where Target is. We decided not to go south there, but to take this abandoned rail and to continue it over to 9th East. So we were inspired by the High Line in New York, which is an elevated rail line that was converted into this fabulous, fabulous linear park. 70,000 people are there each day. And then Joseph created this, this graphic, the 9 line. This shows some of our concepts to wherever it meets. It's kind of like Canalscape about these vital hubs, but it wasn't so commercial. We wanted there to be parks, music gardens, bike parks, little kiosks, something we called track shacks, which would be little places to buy food, drinks, places to stop and use a restroom. And then we really wanted community engagement. So you can see, if you look at our website, slcworkshop.org, there's a place for feedback. So if you want to give us feedback on this, we would love to see it. So here it is. Instead of going down there, it just veers over onto the street, and it's a bike lane here. So here's the website if you want to check it out. And here, it's a place to get involved. You can give your feedback. You can provide new ideas for Salt Lake City Workshop, and I love getting new ideas for us to do. And then they took Joseph's logo and they created an event. We presented this to the city, and they had already been, over the years working on different aspects of this, but it really started to come together at this point. They allocated, I think it was $700,000, and they started to build the 9 line, which was really excited. So this was the opening event. They put a billboard up. There's Joseph, very proud. And they created T-shirts, they created thermoses, they created all kinds of things, little ribbons that say the 9 line. This is Sean Morgan. Sean was the team leader, and he also interned at the city. And so he became the kind of point person at the city on this project. And here's a bunch of kids, plus Mayor Becker, riding their bikes through the ribbon to inaugurate. This was this newly built 9 line here. So now I'm going to head towards conclusion. Basically, I think that we're seeing a huge amount of improvement. We complain, we see problems in our environment, and they're there for sure. But we have seen a broad-based movement, improving design at all scales from the wastebasket to the watershed. And I think that the best practices are shifting their approach. This thing I'm talking to you about, this path toward prosperity, I didn't make this up. I made up the spiral and I made up the 6 steps. But that to me is a distillation of what I see out there that's happening that's really good. I wanted to turn it into something relatively simple so that other people could do it as well. But it is happening. I was learning from the best practices. They follow those 6 steps. So they don't do this. This is the conventional approach. If this looks familiar to you, maybe it's time to shift. And I'll show you what we're shifting towards. But the conventional approach starts with a need. We need this, or a problem. Then it says, let's come up with a solution. Remember, you go right to the propose. Then establish a set of goals, and then it says, let's implement the goals. Okay, that might look familiar to you. This other approach, this path toward prosperity, also starts with the need or the problem, but then it takes a step back. It identifies the assets. Very, very important. Then it takes those assets, it connects the dots between them, and it adds energy to that system, and then it implements. Now, the success we've been having in the last 15 years has a lot to do with the sustainability movement. However, the word sustain means stay the same, right? Staying the same is better than getting worse. And we were getting worse for a long time. So sustainability is better than getting worse. But you don't get up every day and say, well, I just hope I can make it through the day. Well, sometimes you do. But really, you want to have a great day. You want to prosper, not just survive through the day. You don't just want to sustain. You want to do better than that. And if you look at the most well-accepted definition of sustainability, I think I see Tariq back there. If you look at the most used definition, there is one word in there that's repeated twice. Right? And you're always taught in school, don't use the same word twice in a sentence, right? But this UN report has used the same word twice, and that word is needs. Sustainability starts with needs. It's about identifying the needs, finding solutions. It's the old model. So what I'm seeing happening, and this is actually the little diagram that started my book, was this. There's a transition happening. You could call it an evolution of consciousness. You could call it a transformation. You could call it a paradigm shift. This is happening. I'm not making it up. The sustainability paradigm is the green one on the left, but we are shifting in many regards to a prosperity paradigm. So if you start at the bottom, the sustainability one starts with needs. Then you do a critique. You know how we talk critical thinking? That's all part of the modern way of thinking. When sustainability is part of the modern way of thinking. Then we see cities and buildings as machines. We problem find with a focus on the past. We come up with solutions, including master plans and regulations to implement them. We see ourselves as experts, as individuals who are in competition with other individuals. And if we do all that well, we can end up with sustainability, staying the same. If we want prosperity, if we want to have a great day, if we want to have a great city, if we want to have a great community, we start with the gifts. We start with the assets. Then instead of an attitude of critique, we have an attitude of respect, an attitude of appreciation. We see the human habitat as part of nature, not as machines, and we're part of nature too. We engage in opportunity finding with a focus on the future instead of problem finding with a focus on the past. We engage in capacity building, creating self-adjusting feedback mechanisms, and we see ourselves as catalysts, as members of teams, as co-creating with others. So once again, instead of going from problem to propose with a focus on deficit, we go from problem to prospect. Very important. And along the way, what happens is that we are envisioning together. And when we envision together, we not only refine the vision, we not only get buy-in, we are implementing it already because we're rallying the resources to realize the vision. Instead of coming up with your whole project and then presenting it to people and say, here's my great idea, build it. And they're like, I don't think it's a great idea. So this helps you to polish it along the way so it happens. You're all probably familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This was produced during the modern era. It's about needs, needs, needs. We've got this set of needs. There's a hierarchy. I would like to replace that with a hierarchy of gifts. So we start with fuels, which is all the energy, all different forms of energy, whether it's human, natural resource energy, whatever. Then we go to tools, which are hammers, which are computers, which are our knowledge, all those tools. So energy, tools, and we end up with joules. These can be these things that can be perceived as problems initially. When you take this approach, remember I told you it changes everything? That's because what is first perceived as problems can turn into the greatest opportunities when you do it this way. When we begin with our strengths, our greatest problems can become our greatest solutions. And this is when we achieve prosperity. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.